everyone's connected on such an amazing level.
Yeah.
And so I was grateful for that response because it did fill us up no matter how much we want to say we're fine.
Well, there's a
It
massive beauty in being vulnerable, right?
yeah,
It builds connection regardless of, what people
yeah,
say. Like I cannot relate to that. I have never been in that situation, but I definitely feel everything, like there is
yeah.
a piece of it, and I love that she is so open. I love
Oh,
it. And I hate how people are like, oh, well, you shouldn't be telling people. Why? Why do we have to be so closed down and not
yeah.
share in these moments? Welcome to the Conscious Journey podcast, where I invite you to have an open heart and an open mind to consciously explore your own life's journey as we dive into conversations that lead to discovery, growth, healing, and expansion. I'm your host, Kristy Morrison. All right. I am so excited to have my friend and business partner, Curtis, with me again. We're doing a little bit of the easy button today, right? We're talking about thoughts becoming things and how, thoughts are in our lives and we have emotions tied to all of them, whether they're positive or whether they're negative, and kind of incorporating how we feel about these as we go into our life, recognizing them, and as they become things, do we want them to or do we not want them to? So I think it's going to be an exciting topic. What about you?
Absolutely. Hey guys, thanks for having me back again. It is really good to be back. And as Christy was saying, everyone who I would think that would be interested in this podcast, I think, is kind of experimenting with the idea of spirituality, or at
Mm-hmm.
least understanding, or being curious about learning more about yourself, and have heard the expression, as Christy said it, thoughts become things, and I think what Christy and I are intending with this podcast is kind of deep diving into it rather than letting it be passive and just a thought in the mind. Why don't we, say, is that even real? Does that
Yeah.
even play a part in our life? And then when we discover that, oh, it could play a part in our life, what are some of the things that we can do then, consciously,
Yeah.
to create more equanimity in our life, to create more fun, to create more joy. Yeah, so I think this would be a good place to dwell today.
I agree. Like, and it's easy in the spiritual community, or I guess any community, where you hear these things, it just becomes trendy, right? Oh, thoughts
Yeah,
become things. Thoughts become things. But no one really sits there and digests about what does that actually mean, right?
yeah, and
Oh.
and, and in response to that, to credit anybody who's ever expressed it, who
Hmm.
understands it themselves and has attempted to sprinkle some deliciousness on it, maybe they understand it, and maybe they attempted to articulate it and only resonated with a few.
Yes.
So the few that our understanding of it today that it resonates with, this is for you. Um, I think the more you understand how connected we all are, it is such a delicious thing. I would like to, kind of share a bit about myself. This past week, in this past few months, my girlfriend Rachel and I found out we were expecting, and on Monday night, unfortunately, we had some pretty struggling news where
Mm-hmm.
she miscarried. And, we as two people who understands ourselves spiritually and we tend to pound our thoughts and everything happens for us, not to us. And of course we're trying to logic the whole thing after, and well, maybe
Yeah.
there's this, maybe there's that, and then we just let ourselves just be open.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of society today is, oh, that's why you wait, you don't tell anyone. Well, you ever met my girlfriend Rachel? She's not like that. She doesn't care. She wants to share herself, and she even posted on her social feeds, you know, she just wanted to get it out there and tell people miscarried. Well, the amount of support and
Mm-hmm.
like-minded experiences that are being, flooding into her feed, and people that I've shared this with, my current client right now, I told her the reason I took a day off to be with Rachel on Tuesday was so we could just be with each other and just allow things to happen throughout the day.
Yeah.
And my response from my client was, "Oh, I had a miscarriage and I have two wonderful children."
Yep.
And then we told my mother, and bless her heart, she said she had two miscarriages. I never knew that, and
Oh.
the more people that are responding to Rachel's opening up on her socials, people are saying, well, I had a miscarriage, I had a miscarriage, I had a miscarriage, I had a There's so many people saying, a friend I saw yesterday said his mother had five, and she has three
Mm.
children, and it's like, there's just something about knowing other people have gone through what you've gone through
Yeah. It's a
that makes
comfort.
it's a comfort. And then this is evidence that you may think we're not connected, but we're
We all
connected.
are. Yeah.
Everyone's connected on such an amazing level.
Yeah.
And so I was grateful for that response, because it did fill us up. No matter how much we want to say we're fine.
Well, there's a
It
massive beauty in being vulnerable, right? It
Yeah,
builds connection regardless of, what people
yeah.
say. Like I cannot relate to that. I have never been in that situation, but I definitely feel everything, like there is
Yeah.
a piece of it, and I love that she is so open. I love
Oh,
it. And I hate how people are like, oh, well, you shouldn't be telling people. Why do we have to be so closed down and not
yeah,
share in these moments? It's
yeah.
beautiful that she was pregnant. And it's also beautiful that she's sharing her experiences and other people are having these opportunities to relate, which they would have if she kept it quiet.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
love it.
And I yeah, so thank you for letting me share that. Okay, let's get
Yeah.
into this. So
I love
I
it. Thank
I
you.
s- yeah. Thank you so much, Christy. So I said something to Christy when we first got on, and she said, "Stop, we have to
Yeah.
record." So I'll attempt to articulate this the same way. Something came across my awareness when I was thinking, okay, thoughts become things, right? And so this quote is quite fascinating. It says, "Allow what is past to be less delicious
Hmm.
than the now." Right? So we're not swapping, say, an experience, saying I'm waiting for that experience again to be
Right.
delicious. We're actually saying in the now, like right now, like what's stopping you from feeling certain things. And then I kind
Hmm.
of just sat there with my coffee this morning and I read this to Christy, which is where she's told me to stop talking. So I'll read this again. When you think of a past event in your life that you enjoyed in some way, you automatically assign an emotion to it, or a bunch of emotions, right?
Hmm.
As a way that represents this experience in your life. And then I continued to say, think of like skydiving. We have like someone, hey, have you skydived yet? Oh, yes, I did. I did a couple of years ago. It was the best feeling. The guy that I jumped with or the girl that I jumped with, they were so great. I met
Hmm.
people in the group. We all had this amazing experience. I was high off of it for 3 days. And you're attaching a whole plethora of emotions
Yes.
to this experience, which identifies that experience. So to you, skydiving is such and such and such and such, right? Which keeps that elated feeling in
Mm-hmm.
your life. And so that was a past experience, and it's like, allow what is past to be less delicious than your now. So that
Mm-hmm.
means you are capable of feeling all those emotions now. But the thing that's not letting them in is the dwelling on them. Because when you dwell on something that happened in the past, you may not think that you dwell on it that often, but you probably do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're staying in that past experience, which we're really analytical. So we like to attach emotions to that experience in
Yes.
order for a way for us to digest it.
Mm-hmm.
So we digest for, so say it happened 2 years ago. So for 2 years, we're digesting this experience, and it's really become something really powerful in our life. And when we think about it, it elates us.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a way to reverse engineer this? And is there a way to bypass these things? And you would think, when would be the best time to do that? Well, maybe first thing in the morning, right? So
Mm-hmm.
think about that too, come at this one from a different perspective. So the experience of skydiving eventually got you to assign a plethora of emotions to it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Say joy, fun, playfulness. You're sure that it was so good. So we built on these things. So now, is it as simple as waking up in the morning, writing down an emotion, say the emotion of joy,
Mm-hmm.
and then thinking in your mind as you lay there, what does joy mean to me?
Mm-hmm.
And then letting yourself dance a little bit. Maybe for those who like to journal, it
Mm-hmm.
really helps to journal. Write down the word joy. What does joy mean to me?
Mm-hmm.
Fun. And let that one dance over your mind. And then now maybe there's 5 emotions that you kind of want to play around with. Well, now, how much time has passed since you wrote down the first word and let
Exactly.
ruminate in your experience? Well, what's actually happening right there? Could you be possibly charging your day? Could
Mm-hmm.
you be possibly going, okay, so thoughts become things, right? So I'm now ruminating, I'm contemplating what joy means to me.
Mm-hmm.
Could it be possible that, let's say that thoughts do become things? Now you're giving your day no choice but to show you examples of joy,
Exactly.
right? So now you're setting the expectations for the experiences of joy, and allowing it to be a surprise. Surprise!
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh wow! Like, I had a laugh today that was like a belly laugh with somebody, and then, oh, maybe that's what Kurt's talking about. Now, did I have something to do with that? Simply because of I was contemplating and I was allowing the thoughts to ruminate within me, and maybe 5 minutes passed in the
Mm-hmm.
morning. So it's not about, you know, like dwelling on it forever and studying it and making it this big audacious thing. It's like maybe 3 minutes of dwelling on 3 emotions in the morning, just like pausing, taking a deep breath, maybe even putting your hand on your heart space.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes there is that expression where attention goes, energy flows. So by
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
simply touching your heart, you're telling yourself, where my hand is touching, I am putting my attention. And that actually helps the busy mind
Mm-hmm.
release. And then you just start thinking of your heart. And then you think of the word joy. And before you know it, you think of the word fun. And you think of the word happiness. Like, these are
Mm-hmm.
really simple words. And then you let it ruminate. And then 3 minutes has passed. Are you conjuring energy and releasing the expectation of when it comes, and you're just going, here it is, day,
Mm-hmm.
and then now back to your organizing, packing your
Mm-hmm.
lunch, getting ready,
Mm-hmm.
getting on the road?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're kind of saying, surprise me, delight me today.
I love how it's it's kind of like infusing your day. You know, I love tea. Obviously everyone can see I see tea. So I just thought of this as I'm sitting here that every day I get to pick what I want to put in my teacup, right? What flavors I want to enjoy and whatnot. It's kind of like, and it infuses the water with those flavors. You're doing the exact same thing. You're infusing these 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 joy, whatever words you're thinking of. So if you wake up, it works in the opposite way as well. So if you're waking up and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh man, like I have this stupid thing to do, well, you're infusing that type of
Yeah.
energy into your day and it's going to drag on. But if you
Yeah.
choose to wake up and think about the positive things or joy or happiness or love or anything like that, you're infusing it. So everything in your life has the opportunity to show up in that way.
Yeah. And I'll add to that. That was amazing, Kristy. So I'll add to that. th- Can you give yourself the grace, regardless of what's going on? Like, all these things are going on in my life, Kurt. How could I possibly think of the word joy right now? All I'm
Mm,
saying is separate yourself from reality for a moment.
yes. Yeah.
Literally give yourself the grace because you can, and then do it to prove
Hmm.
me wrong. And write in the comments, say I did it and it didn't work for me. That's fine, but did you really do it? Because we get out of
Hmm.
things what we put into things,
Yes.
and you could set a timer for 3 minutes and say, oh well, listen, Kurt, I'll do it because I just want to get this guy off my back. So that's fine too. Whatever reason you're doing it for, you're going to enjoy it, and literally let that word dance for a moment, because you kind of cut the momentum that's headed in one direction.
Hmm.
And then, there is an expression of inertia.
Hmm.
Uh, you could see four people pushing a car that's in neutral, and eventually it's hard right when they first start pushing, but then they start kind of stepping faster, and then it starts to go a bit.
Yeah. And
Although,
inertia is
although,
not like something in action remains in action.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then now here's the crux of that. You're pushing it towards a hill.
Mm.
You're going to start to feel a little pressure on your hands.
Yeah.
When you get it over that hill, you're not going to be able to stop that car.
Oh yeah.
Now it's got all this momentum. Now, which direction do you want the momentum to go in today?
Exactly. I think the biggest thing is, as humans, we need to give ourselves a little bit of grace in our lives, right? There's going to be difficult moments, and
Yeah,
people are going to be like, "Oh, well, I can't be happy right now." You can, like, you could actually put yourself in a position where you can have a moment of happiness and practice holding on to it. Yes, we're
yeah,
going to have difficult times, but we don't have to have these difficult times and just accept them and hold them and let them infuse us. We can choose to what we want to infuse it on in our body. So
yeah.
eh,
And I love that you said the word practice.
yeah.
I have a quote. It says, "Perfect practice makes practice perfect."
Mm-hmm. I think everything that we're doing is practice, right? It's until it
What?
becomes second nature.
Sure. Yeah. One thing I will add to that. We all know, or maybe not everyone, have heard of Wayne Gretzky or Michael Jordan or Shaquille O'Neal.
I
You know,
mean, they
I mean,
should.
think think of Wayne Gretzky, okay? It has been said that his parents kind of had to surrender their basement because as a child, every day he would shoot 1,000 pucks
Mm-hmm.
into the dryer at this one wall in their basement. And I would think that that could be credited to a part of his why he was so good at what he was doing. Now,
Mm-hmm.
remember, he had a hockey stick and he was hitting a puck
Mm-hmm.
somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he could have hit a basketball with the hockey stick into the dryer and still got good with his stick, but that wouldn't be perfect practice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So, perfect practice means you may want to research a little bit of what you're about to do before you do it, just to make sure you're not learning the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not saying you're not gonna get to your destination. It may be a little easier to get to your destination when you're practicing in the right way.
Exactly.
So there is a lot about do your own research.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you want to learn how to meditate, do some research. When you want to learn how to cook, do some research because it might not turn out that well. When you want to learn how to put a barbecue together, read the directions. You know,
Yeah.
we so I mean, I find that it has some efficacy to it. And then something I'll go back to some things that may help people here. You know, laugh more,
Mm.
play more, get outside more, you know, appreciate more.
Mm-hmm.
It is fascinating the energy that gets put out there. And for anyone, when we say that, all we mean is like, have you ever, when we say put energy out there, have you ever entered a room and been like, something's up with this room? I just don't like the
Yeah.
feeling I have.
I would say most people have been able to identify with that feeling, but never been able to articulate it. They're always like, something's up. But they sometimes think that, oh, I'm crazy or whatever, it's nothing. But
Yeah.
that's a hit. That's something.
Yeah. So what happened there? Something might have happened in the room moments before you got in there.
Mm-hmm.
And you're picking up on the energy in the room because no one said
Mm-hmm.
this was what happened in that room. Be careful before you go in. Now
Exactly.
you could be in a room with a group of people and someone enters the room and they light the room up like a Christmas tree.
Mm-hmm.
So what have they done? So you're feeling that elated energy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And again, no one said, "Hey, before this person enters the room, you're going to be lifted up." So you're the one tapping into this. That's something you're doing. We're not telling you you're doing it. We all have had these experiences. Now, I might be dating myself a bit when I say this, but before cell phones, I would be sitting as a teenager in the basement and the phone would ring and my parents would yell down in the basement, "The phone's for you, pick up the phone." I would get on the phone and here it's my friend Dave. And I was like, "Hey, man, I was just thinking about you." So, we've all had that.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about you. Now,
That's a connectivity.
you can't deny that. You can't tell me, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is a coincidence." I love all these coincidences. Well,
Yeah.
fine. If you're someone who is happy with just passing things off as coincidences forever, and you don't have a curious enough mind to wonder, well, okay, did this
Mm-hmm.
actually happen? Yes, it did.
Exactly.
Could it be reenacted deliberately in my life to create more equanimity, to create more positivity in my life? Yes, there is a lot of neuroscience right now that's being studied. I mean, anyone who's curious about this, check out Bruce Lipton and the biology of belief. You know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, like there is so much efficacy to this. He was an atheist scientist, a professor who became spiritual because he, through the research, found out it was undeniable and completely
Yep.
changed his career and shares his knowledge with the world to help people understand that you do have a say in your life.
Yeah. And I think that's
Right?
even part of my own journey, which is I was raised practically atheist, like nothing exists, whatever. And then there comes a point where you just start experiencing things, coincidences. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, this can't be a coincidence, and synchronicities. And then you start questioning things, and then you start, opening yourself and being curious and looking behind these doors. And you're like, okay, there's something really cool going on out there.
Yes. I I I was sitting with Rachel the other day, and I was coming up with ideas that I could possibly make some videos with, and she had a
Mm.
great thought. I have a book from 1822 that I was blessed with, and I love it.
We need to
And
bring it on here one day.
it's one of the original Webster's dictionaries, right? From 1822. There was only 2,500 made at its
Mm-hmm.
time. And it's such a fascinating book going through the descriptions of the words, and I like to challenge the words against our current understanding when you search it on Google, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And I always get fascinated and kind of go, what? Why is it different today? And I said to Rachel, I said, well, my friend Eric and I and Kristy have been writing these things down for the last couple of years. And I said, look, I'll show you. And we have it all on a app called Keep. And so I scrolled down and this word jumped out at me as I was showing her, So the word normal in 1828, this is the definition. Some of these words are, remember, these are from 1828, so it kind of squeezes the brain a little bit, but allow it in and humor me as I read this. So 1828, the definition of normal, relating to rudiments or elements. Okay, and we all know what elements are. And to all of us, they're normal, right? Because they don't change, right? So teaching first principles according to an established principle. And then I kind of contemplated this a while back, and I read this again. I was like, oh, isn't that interesting? So what first principles are required to become more aware of the elements? So I then thought, okay, I gotta look into this more. What do the elements teach us about ourselves? The elements are the end. That is all, right? Elements can be utilized. We understand this with electricity. They don't have an electrical dam somewhere where it's all calm. No, they dam up water, right? So the elements, you are an element, okay, that has so much potential. You cannot make them anything other than what they are. Okay? This is flow. Flow is natural. What first principles are required to become more aware of the elements? Realize that once you establish who you be, you actually created the element that is you. Okay? So give yourself time to get to know that person. The element that is water, first principle, as we all know, when narrowed and aimed into a certain location, can create friction. Second principle. Okay? From this friction comes controlled power. Okay? So we cannot fight evil. We can only control it. We cannot fight the current. We can only flow with it. So in first principle, control is an illusion. Okay? So realize you're going to keep on going no matter what you do.
Yep.
You can't stop you. It's impossible to stop you.
And I find, and that really translates to like the people who are really fixated on controlling every aspect within their life, they have such a difficult time and end up being stressed out more so than those who are able to go with the flow.
Yeah. So here, I'll repeat this again. In first principle, control is an illusion.
Yes.
In second principle, control is natural. Okay? So narrow yourself into a certain area and get laser focused on that area because you control that. Okay? And create yourself first by allowing the flow to be what it is. Second, realize you have a say in what comes next. That is such an amazing feeling that comes over you, and you just feel better when you finally realize that maybe I've been fighting the current.
Exactly.
Against it instead of flowing with it.
Which is exhausting.
There are many people in the world who have struggled their way up to mountains.
Yep.
But But you might want to ask yourself a question. Why? So there's 8 billion people on the planet apparently, and maybe 1,200 have made it to the top of Mount Everest. So is that natural? Why aren't all 8 billion at the top then? And then, because they're the ones who succeeded, Kurt, and they're the ones that went through the struggle, and only 1,200 get to live blissful lives. That is so false. That type of thinking is what's keeping you from getting to where you want to be, right?
I agree.
And let's say you're standing on the edge of a cliff, and you're at a kayaking event, right? And you've shown up, and there's thousands of people watching this kayaking event, and these brave souls thrust themselves to go up the current and fight upstream, okay? Now, why is there thousands and thousands and thousands of people standing on the edge of a cliff watching 12 people fight up against the current? Because it's not natural. It's not something everyone wants to do. But then let's say you look at a lazy river, right? And you see hundreds of people floating down it effortlessly. Now, why is there hundreds in the lazy river and only 12 rushing up this fighting current going upstream? Because it's not natural. Our natural state is not to fight upstream. Our natural state is not to fight the current. Our natural state is literally throw the oar, as many have learned. Anyone who studies anything that Abraham Hicks or Esther and Jerry Hicks share with the world is such a wonderful metaphor. Stop fighting the current, allow yourself to float downstream. That's where everything you want in your life effortlessly is. And Kristy, likes to equate me to the easy button. That's where the easy button is. I'm not telling you where I'm going to press it all the time, because sometimes I'd love to say I know where that's going to be, but I do press it often.
You do. And also in our business, VitaSana, we have this kind of thing where it's like downstream, right? If it's not going downstream, we're probably not going to do it.
Drop it.
Yeah.
Right?
Which has saved us, I'm sure, like thousands of hours, right?
Yeah.
Trying to fight something that's not supposed to be.
And you said it, fight. When it's causing friction, drop it. Yeah. Because there's so much more downstream than there is upstream. Right? And bless those people's hearts who make it that thing in their life to be the one who does get to the finish line, fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. That's not natural. The natural is the flow. And then one thing that you might say to me when, okay, Kurt, I'm going to go with what you say. I'm going to stop fighting. I'm going to just throw the oars and let the current take me and just flow wherever it takes me and flow downstream. And then, well, I did that, Kurt. It was kind of good for a couple of weeks, but then something happened. Well, I said, okay, so picture yourself. You're in a boat. You've thrown the oars. You allowed the current to course correct. And now you're flowing downstream, and then it's kind of stuck in a rock. And like the current, you just can't get out because it's like, it just keeps on keeping you in the rock. But guess what? Eventually, like it's going to go. So while you're in that little bit of a wobble or a place of friction, realize that the more you throw the oar out and the more you let be whatever's going on, it's going to eventually lift, and then you're going to find yourself floating again, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And again, like I said, you can't stop you. You can't. You're here to live.
Exactly.
You're here to do whatever you do. You can't stop you. As much as you get up and say, I don't want to do this thing, or this thing's bothering me, or there's the bill collectors again, or you can't stop you. I don't care what you do. It's going to continue.
Exactly.
You will always continue to be. So, like Kristy said, you can wake up in one frame of mind and maybe not do the things we suggested, and then continue to fight upstream. And you can't stop you, so that's going to continue. I don't care. You cannot stop you. I'll write a book about it.
Yep.
Okay? You're all going to buy it. Trust me. You can't stop you.
Yes.
And so, again, because first principle, the element of water, good luck trying to stop water.
Yeah, exactly.
Although there are some clever individuals have utilized it. Maybe they've hooked up downspouts from their roof to a barrel and created a rain barrel for their garden.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't stop water, although you can narrow it into a certain area to benefit your life. So you can't stop you, although you can cleverly set up certain circumstances or experiences in your life to narrow things, to benefit from them.
That's so beautiful. I love that analogy.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Makes me kind of want to just be like, what sit here and evaluate, like, what can I beautifully narrow down now?
Okay, so here, I just saw this, and Kristy's heard me say this. She's probably just roll her eyes when I say it, but I say it often.
I don't ever roll my eyes.
Okay, Rachel does. So, to anybody who doesn't know, Rachel's my girlfriend. So, okay, a boat wasn't discovered through the contemplating of the sinking of things. It was discovered through the contemplating of the floating of things. So here we go back to our original statement when we started this: thoughts become things. So who was contemplating something floating? Right? Because that's why we all literally, oh, it's just a boat, Kurt. No, someone created that in their mind first, right? You think of an artist. Where's the original? Where's the original painting? Yes, Kristy. They're
in your head.
The second on canvas because the original was in their mind.
Yeah.
You know? So do they go with one stroke first and then, yeah, sure, fine. Well, then, Kurt, they did it as they went. No. The original's in here. They're just literally attempting to put it on canvas.
Yes.
Did someone have a thought? Maybe let your imagination play here. Maybe one day we were a species that couldn't even be on water or
fly.
Stay in it for too long. Let's go there in a second. So now let's say you're a human.
Yeah.
Wanting to get to the other side, and you're just looking at the water, wondering, how can I get to the other side? And the universe, of course, is trying to show you answers by sticks floating across the water.
Yeah.
And you see a log floating, and all of a sudden, wait a minute, how is that log floating? Well, maybe I go stand on it while it sinks. Okay, maybe I put 2 logs together. And it still sinks, or it doesn't keep me up. Well, maybe I put 18 logs together. I floated, but I can't really get over there. I don't know how to get over there. And then see how by getting through that process, 1 stroke, 2 stroke, 1,000 strokes, here's the Mona Lisa. Right?
Exactly.
So yeah, maybe it took 100,000 years for someone to figure out how to make a boat. But the original thought, that thought had to come first to get us there. So give yourself a break.
Well, that's the start of every point, right? Like even the invention of the wheel, like everything that has been created.
Well, did you know that the wheel wasn't first spherical?
Yeah.
It was so imagine the people like, yeah, great idea, but holy.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna have a hernia if we don't get there soon. So, and then maybe just make it a little bit more curvature, and then, or maybe they saw a tumbleweed rolling, and then they had this thought, like, again, a thought, and so maybe, and what happened? Contemplate. So again, we said in the morning for 3 minutes, think of the word joy and think of what the word joy means to you. And then you're going to experience this thing in the morning. And then throughout the day, the life is going to show you joy in some way. And you're going to be like, oh, that's what that was. Now, you discovered that you have a say. And then I say, and people say, okay, how do I create more things that I deliciously love then, Kurt, in my life? Well, what is it that you want to be? What is it that you feel like expressing in the world? What is it that you think you can't be? We'll put that aside and say, how about you dwell on seeing yourself as you wish to be? Just let it play, you know?
Yes.
That thing that you think that you can't be, okay, well, let your imagination dance for 3 minutes in the morning and see yourself as that. And things are gonna start to tumble in your life that show you directions to take that'll get you there.
So that's the beautiful part. Like, I have an actual life example of thoughts become things in the manifestation of what you want to show up in your life. So when I was 25, I started my staging business. And from the day I started my business, I knew nothing about business. I was 25. I knew nothing. I woke up and I was like, I'm going to start a staging and design company, and I'm going to be number one, and I'm going to be the best in the city, and blah, blah, blah. And there was every fiber in my being. I was like, this is what I am doing. And it took me 2 years to actually win my first award. And then I ended up being like number one in Ottawa and number two in Canada. Like, there was zero doubt in my mind. Like, I woke up and I made the decision that I had no idea what I was doing in business. Like,
no.
It was a thought at first.
Yeah.
And then
you saw yourself as that.
I saw myself, I embodied it, and I showed up every day with my, excitement and being number one. And, I had an assistant, Miranda, which was me. I acted like I had a team, and I was big and award winning. And then everything fell into place. I won awards year after year after year. And we were like the top company in the city, and then, getting accolades across Canada. So I'm like, this is freaking amazing. So it works. And when people say it doesn't, I'm just like, it's because you have doubt.
Yeah. So the talk show host, or the show host, game show host, Steve Harvey, I think
I love him.
Whose line is it anyways, I think? Is that what it is? The talk show?
Yeah.
I think we all know Steve Harvey, too, a comedian. He's well known in the world, and I don't know if he originated this quote. I can't confirm or deny that, but it's fascinating. He said, when you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. And for anyone who's struggling with weight, he said, put the weight you want to be on your refrigerator. Because when you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. Now that makes it go, interesting. Exactly. Is he right? So, again, prove us wrong here.
Yeah, do it. Try and prove us wrong.
I mean, that guy has a pretty delicious life, and all he did was apply these principles in his life. Yeah. Wouldn't you, who thinks that only they can have that and not you, maybe want to drop that belief and say, all right, the way
they have nothing to lose.
It's actually amazing how little effort it takes to do this, and no one does it.
I know.
And it's like, all I desire is that you literally let yourself go there. And when it's weight, why don't you put it? Because you know why you said the refrigerator?
Because you go into it all day, every day.
All the time. So it's the image, right? Imprinting. He didn't say, put it under the stairs in your basement.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's also why vision boards are so helpful to a lot of people. Yeah. Especially when you put that vision board where you're going to see it. If you create it and then put it in a binder and on your shelf, it's not going to have the same effect as it's going to be on your, look, I'm going to show you this. This one's mine.
Oh, it's amazing.
Right? It's right there in my office. I see it every day I come in here. There's absolutely nothing on there that I know is not going to come true, because it's what I want. It's what I'm working for. It's ingrained in me.
You're letting it in.
Yeah.
You're letting it in, and you're not saying when.
Exactly.
Who, when, where, what, how. You're not doing any of that stuff. You're letting it in. You're simply allowing it in.
Exactly.
Right? And yes, do we live in a place that has this thing called time. Sure, yeah, we do. So then let that go. Let the when go.
Mm-hmm.
All, you know what? Maybe the two best things to focus on is why
Mm-hmm.
and what, right? So let's think about why. Why do you want this thing? You gotta make that clear.
Exactly.
You know, if you're not gonna make it clear, I'll share something that happened on a spiritual forum. There's a lot of young people on these forums, and as you know now, we're all kind of curiously discovering spirituality, and we want to
Mm-hmm.
share our stuff, and everyone's having these aha moments and wanting to share. And there are a lot of older people that have done spirituality their whole lives that kind of observe these forums.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind gentleman, he was in his late 70s. He someone asked and posted, said, is there anything to this stuff? I just don't believe in this stuff at all because this happened in my life and this happened in my life. So he gets on the thread and he said, I normally don't get involved in these threads. And he's like, I love watching kind of where the awareness of people are these days. But he said, I want to share something with you all who's doubting any of these things. He said when he was in his late 30s, he kind of caught on to the idea of the law of attraction. And for anybody who doesn't know, the law of attraction is what Kristy and I have been talking about, thoughts becoming things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how the law of attraction is always working. Now it could be working on the negative spectrum or the positive, and it's always working.
Yep.
Trust me.
Always
So,
working.
so and maybe we can do a podcast on that one day. But I'll stick to this
Mm-hmm.
story just so I don't jump. So he said, "Listen, I wrote down on a piece of paper. He was living in the States at the time. I want to live in Spain. I see myself living in Spain. I've always loved Spain. Spain is amazing." So he just dwelled on Spain for a long time, and he just visualized living in Spain. I live in Spain. I live in Spain. I live in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
And he said it took 7 years. Imagine 7 years putting the kind of faith into yourself for 7 years. Oh, wow, that's tough. It is whenever you're saying these things don't work, whenever
Mm-hmm.
you're saying, I'm going to lead with faith, then it can't disappear, right? So, second principle. So, narrow that in, right? Because that's the control you have.
Yes. Yep.
The beast that is you, that's first principle. You're always
Mm-hmm.
going to exist. So, second principle is realizing you have a say. That's where control is. So,
Mm-hmm.
what did he do? Second principle, he used his mind and focused on Spain. Well, he said, guess what, folks? I now live in Spain, although I live in a trailer with 4 other people. So he got exactly what he was envisioning, but he
Yep.
said he didn't put any details around it.
He wasn't specific enough.
Because he said, I could have said, I want to live in Spain in a tiki hut on the water, and I want to have people give me things constantly, and I want
Yeah.
only delicious experiences in Spain. So remember, you put yourself out there, get the desires that you desire out there, and be clear, write things down, but be specific.
Mm-hmm.
Because the universe will give you exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is a time sequence. I'm not saying it's 7 years. Sometimes it's 7 days. There is a time sequence. So there's a season for reaping and there's a season for sowing, and we cannot have them both in the same season.
Yes.
A farmer doesn't go plant a seed in the spring and then wake up for breakfast in the next morning and say, oh, 1 second, honey, I'm going to go out and dig up the seed to see if it rooted.
Yeah, exactly.
They start to create an inventory list about,
Yeah.
how many bushels we're going to have at the end.
Which
right?
I like that it kind of ties into the society that we've become. We kind of become an instant gratification society, right? So a lot of people feel that if they start a company, they're going to be number one right away. I'm like, it took me 2 years, and that was like 365 days, 24 hours a day, embodying I am number one.
Yeah.
2 years to do that. So in
Yeah.
an instant gratification society, that is exactly a perfect example of the farming analogy. Is you can't plant your seed and then expect to reap your harvest the very next day. It's going to take time. It has to establish its roots. It has to be able to grow and transform friggin' the sun and all that into its own food and get stronger and stronger. And then the more it grows, the more it's going to have the nutrients it's going to need to provide the fruit or vegetable that it's creating. Like, and I think that's the biggest transformation that a lot of the younger generation is kind of skipping through. And I'm kind of excited because they're beginning to realize, they're like, oh, there might be something I'm missing here. And you're like, yeah, it's patience.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and the interesting thing about patience is when you release the expectation of when,
Yeah,
patience is no longer required.
exactly.
Because you're like, oh, well, that's happening in my life. Clearly, I'm going to go do this.
Yeah. And you don't care when it shows up because you know it's going to show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you don't need patience.
I think I love it.
Yeah. Cultivating patience is really important. And also realizing that once you embody it, it's no longer required.
Mm-hmm.
And I am going to add one more word because I feel that this is quite important.
Yeah, I think it'll be good to end on your final word.
Okay. And I guess there would be no coincidence to this word because it's all about cultivation, right?
Mm-hmm.
In someone who knows something's coming, what would be a good vibration? Now, vibration is something you put out there, which is a thought.
Mm-hmm.
And what would be a good emotion to embody? Enthusiasm.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming. Woohoo!
I love
I
it.
know it's coming. Yeah, it's mine. Why are you so excited? Because, oh, I know what's coming. It's the 1828 definition of enthusiasm. A belief or conceit or private revelation, right? Private. You know it's coming. You don't,
Mm-hmm.
hey, it's coming. There's the bells, right?
I know. It was like validation that just came
Yeah.
in, and I always turn
Right?
off my alerts too.
Yeah. Hey, we let things roll with us, right?
Yeah.
And someone, maybe this can help. I won't veer too much. Someone's really finding it tough to concentrate while they meditate, and they're like, "This thing distracts me, and this thing distracts me, and I hear this, and all of a sudden that happens. It's distract." Stop saying it distracts you. Start saying it's adding to your focus.
Mm-hmm.
So important. Okay, a belief or conceit of private revelation. So that's inner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so stay here. Because when you know something's coming and you go out and you tell a naysayer, what do you think they're going to say?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to say you're stupid. So
Yep.
you may want to hold that thought in. I know we all get excited and want to share these things, but hold it in for a little bit, right? There's the patience.
Mm-hmm.
The vain confidence or opinion of a person that he or she has the special divine communications from the supreme being or familiar intercourse with it.
Mm-hmm.
Heart of imagination. I love that these things were written in 1828, by the way. Excitement of the mind in pursuit of an object, inspiring extravagant hope and confidence of access, hence the same heart of imagination. Here we are with imagination.
Love
How
it.
many times as children were we told to stop using our imagination? Guys, never mind that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Society has forced you into being an adult that doesn't use their imagination, and that tells you that certain things aren't available to you anymore. Let that go and use your imagination, okay?
Everything great has always been from people's imaginations. Everything. You can't have something without the imagination of it. Everything.
Yeah.
It's like people sitting out in the rain and like they imagined having something over their head, and now look, we have houses.
Imagine Einstein coined it perfectly. Imagination is more powerful than knowledge.
Yeah, it sure is.
Chastised by reason or experience becomes a noble passion, an elevated fancy, a warm imagination. Here we are again, warm, right? And ardent zeal. Remember zeal popped up in our words last time?
Yeah.
That forms sublime. For anyone wanting to see the definition of zeal, check out the other podcast. That forms sublime, right? ideas and prompts the ardent pursuit of laudable objects, right? Tangible, right? Such is the enthusiasm of the poet or the orator, the painter, and the sculptor, right? You know why the sculptor is enthusiastic? Because they already saw it in their mind first. And say, what are you sculpting? Oh, you're going to love it when I'm done.
Exactly.
You know, I'm kind of getting bored of watching you do it. Then leave. When I'm done, you're going to love it. Okay? Such is the enthusiasm of the patriot and the hero. Right? Intense and eager enjoyment, interest, or approval. A feeling of energetic interest in a particular subject or activity and a desire to be involved in it, or a subject that produces such a feeling. Some common synonyms for enthusiasm: passion and zeal. Okay? There are many ways in which an individual might demonstrate enthusiasm in the workplace. For example, in a job interview, he or she may smile, sit up straight, make eye contact, and discuss training and work experiences in an upbeat manner. Okay, we're all talking about ease, easy, right? Kristy and I haven't said one thing during this podcast that was difficult. Right? We're saying 3 minutes. And again, when you're someone listening, these things aren't for you. Simplicity isn't for you. Ease isn't for you. Then, go paddle upstream.
Yeah, have at it.
And it's okay to do those things. It's okay to say, I have to achieve all these things before I can be happy with myself. Then that's fine. Although there is another way. It may not be the better way for you, but for a lot of people, floating down the lazy river is really desirable, right? And allow yourself to float, because when you contemplate ways that you can, ways that it's going to happen, when you contemplate yourself being that thing, you're going to float. And when you contemplate the opposite, you're going to sink. So why wouldn't you let yourself contemplate ways you can and embrace yourself, right?
Yeah, have that curiosity. Just give it a try. Or
There it
don't.
is.
But we think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. I think that is an excellent point to end today's episode. As usual, we were in the flow and time just flew by. I think it was absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for this beautiful chat. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining. Feel free to like, comment, share. The content like this is best to reach people when it's shared from those that are in their awareness. So until next time, guys, we at the Conscious Journey podcast are excited to chat on the next one. Thanks for coming by.
Cheers, guys.